Hey, welcome back to the videos. This is the second video in soloing with modes. We're still in the theory for banjo series, specifically looking at modes. And the previous video we looked at the Ionian mode for G to solo over G chord. And now we're moving into the G Lydian scale, which we found out is the fourth mode of a D scale. So yes, it does start and end, on a G note, but it's actually the fourth mode of D major. So if we were to play that over, say, the sound of an open G on the banjo, listen to the difference. Here's G Ionian, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Okay, that's just a normal Ionian G. Now let's do the G Lydian, which has that C sharp note. So we have G, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G. Slightly different sound. You might think, that's a little weird. That actually could be played over a G major chord, or it could be played over a G9 chord. It could be played over a sharp 7. There's a lot of different ways you could play that, but I just want you to hear, even though you might think, well, I don't like that note over a G, just a normal G chord, John. Well, that's kind of the purpose of exploring modes, is to find out what works over chords and what doesn't. You may not like that C sharp note over a normal G chord, but if you were playing a song that had a major 7, of course I'd like to have a guitar playing behind me, but I don't have that luxury. But if you can keep the sound of this major 7 chord, it blends a little better with a major 7. But just to train your ear to hear the difference, just go back and forth, play a G major scale Ionian version, then play a G Lydian scale, which is pretty much the same scale except it has a C sharp because it actually comes from a D scale. It's the fourth mode of a D scale. So that gives you another soloing tool. Now again, you have to be conscious of, why don't I like the sound of that over a regular G? You may like it better over a G major 7 or a G major 9 chord. But that's the purpose of modes too, is to train your ear to hear how certain intervals sound over certain chords. But you can use it over a G major chord. It's going to sound a little weird. But again, we're trying to solo with them to find out how they work. So that is a G Lydian. Now what would be another mode that has G as the beginning and the end that we may could use over a G chord? Well, the next one that leaps to mind is actually a G Mixolydian. I don't particularly like my. So that what we need to do is find a scale somewhere, some scale that has a G note as the fifth note. I don't particularly like my, because we know Mixolydian refers to the fifth note of a scale, fifth degree. So I'll give you a heads up on that too. C, D, E, F, G. C, D, E, F, G. A C major scale has a G note as the fifth note of the scale. So if we want to play a G Mixolydian scale, we're actually playing the fifth mode of a C major scale. So that means even though we're starting with a G and ending on a G, we're inside the confines of a C major scale. So that means there's no sharps, no flats. C is the only key that has no sharps or flats. So it would sound like this. Here's G Ionian. Then we found out we could also play G Lydian, which comes from a D scale, but has a C sharp note, which sounds sounds a little out of place with a regular G, but we could use it over, say, a G major 7 or a G9, which gives a nice sounding scale to solo over that chord with. Now we're going to take a C major scale and play the 5th mode, the Mixolydian mode, which would give us G Mixolydian. So don't let the name confuse you. Again, G Mixolydian refers to G being the 5th note of some kind of scale, which is C. So listen to this, no sharps or flats. G, A, B, C, D, E, F instead of F sharp, because the C major scale has F, not F sharp. So listen to the difference. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp. G is G Ionian. Here's G Lydian from the D scale. Here is G Mixolydian, and you're going to like this one better than the Lydian, especially playing over a G chord, because again, Mixolydian gives you a dominant or a kind of a bluesy dominant sound. And when you're talking in terms of traditional music like bluegrass, banjo stuff, the Mixolydian mode is really common. It gives you that dark sound. So if you were looking for a mode to play over something to darken it up, maybe give it a tinge of blues, a dominant, a really strong leading sound, you know, then you could choose a Mixolydian scale. So now again, here's the thing to remember, and I'm trying to watch your time, we're good, is just because you're calling this G Mixolydian, don't think that it comes from the G scale. It actually comes from C. G Mixolydian comes from a C scale. It represents, Mixolydian means the 5th note is represented by that note. So the 5th note of a C major scale, C, D, E, F, G, is where G Mixolydian comes from. So G Mixolydian sounds good over a G major chord even though it comes from C. So this is another point to reinforce from the previous video, that when you learn a particular mode of a scale, you can transport that to different keys. Anytime you need soloing ideas over any G major chord, regardless of the key you're in, you have 3 convenient choices. You have Ionian mode, find a G Ionian, that's the easy one. If you want something slightly different, a little jazzier, that can function over, say, a major G major 7 or G9, for instance, then you can choose G Lydian, which comes from a D major scale, but you're using it because it starts and stops on a G. So the main thing to grasp is when you're soloing, if you're looking for a major sound over a particular chord, say G, I need something to solo over a G major chord, look for a mode of any scale that's a major mode. Ionian, Lydian, Mixolydian are the 3 big major sounding modes. And even though they come from a different scale than G, G Lydian comes from D major, and G Mixolydian comes from C, even though they come from a different key, because they start and stop on a G and they have kind of that as their center, you can move and transform them around and play different things. And remember too that you don't play each mode as a precise scale each time. Yes, you should practice each mode. So you know that's G Ionian. That would be G Lydian. That would be G Mixolydian. Practice them as a scale, forwards and backwards. You can do single note, you can do 2-note, 4-note versions, you can do pentatonic versions, you can do all these different versions. But the main thing is that once you get the sound of each one of those 3 modes of a G in your head, then you can start to dissolve the scale pattern and just recombine those 7 notes any way you like, and then you get ideas for solo. Relate them to chords. It's a good idea when you're practicing to use chords, you know, to give you something to bounce it off against. But that'll do it for this video, and next video we'll look at the chord C major.